Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, friends, where you are joining us from across the world. Welcome to our weekly webinar. My name is Tolu Adeosho, and I am your host. I'm also an assistant secretary with Voice of Men 360. Career-wise, I am a registered social worker, and it is my great pleasure to host this weekly's webinar. Thank you, Voice of Men 360 team, for giving me this opportunity. We hold weekly webinars where we bring experts from different fields to discuss on a particular topic. We want to create awareness by sharing valuable information with a larger community. We believe will be useful in some ways to people. Before I introduce our special guest today, I want to give you a brief introduction about Voice of Men 360. So we are a nonprofit organization founded in 2020 and we're based in Toronto, Canada. Voice of Men 360 organization was born out of seeing the tremendous need of boys and men, and it is stepping up to support and help them in many areas of their lives. We are part of the International Men's Day, which is a global organization. International Men's Day follows 6 pillars, and it's all about the overall the well-being of boys and men. And it has been serving for over 21 years in nearly 90 countries around the world. And it's been joined together by doing various activities regularly. So today, our topic for today's webinar is mindful parenting. So our special guest is Oliver Levy. Welcome, Oliver. So he describes himself as a recovered yeller. He has 3 children, a 27-year-old king, a 12-year-old prince, and his 9-year-old princess. He has been there in the same shoes as most parents when it comes to struggling with temper tantrums, kids not listening, whining, sibling battles, and lots more parenting challenges. That's why Oliver came up with his own unique concept, which is called Mindful Parenting Toolkit. His mission is to make a difference in society, to equip our over 10 million parents with actionable tools in order to guide their children to greater achievement, without getting frustrated. So let's hear from Oliver about his mission, concept, and how parents can benefit. Let's welcome our guest, Oliver Levy. Welcome, Oliver.
Good morning.
Good morning, Oliver. How are you doing today?
I am astonished.
Yeah, let's hear about
Yes. Oh yeah. I'll tell you why.
it.
Because I woke up this morning at 5:15
Mm.
and I was alive and well. And the next thing is my wife beside me was breathing. Then my 2 kids in the rooms, when I check on them, they were breathing. So just on that note, there's nothing, and even just by just listening to you on this platform and being on this platform at this moment, there's nothing short of being astonished. So that's why I said I'm very astonished this morning. Thank you for having me.
You know what, Oliver? What I just heard you saying is you're counting your blessings. You're counting the fact that you have the gift of life. And, thank you for bringing that to our reminder, because I find oftentimes I don't think about that and I'm not grateful enough for that. So thank
Correct.
you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. So let's take you back to your childhood. Tell us a little bit more about what it was like growing up as a boy. And I do believe I know where you grew up, but because I actually do know Oliver personally, and we'll get to that later. But Oliver, can you tell us a bit more about how you grew up?
Sure. It's really really long, but gonna make it short.
Okay.
So I grew up on a farm in Jamaica.
Hmm.
And just a few memories. One of the really memories that stood out to me was my grandfather. And my grandfather was very loved, and he participated a lot in the community. And I was one of his favorite grandson. And I'm always, everywhere he goes, I'm with him. And people loved him, the way he made people feel. And you know what? I always said to myself, I want to be like this when I grow up.
Hmm.
So he gave me a piece of land where all the grandkids, he gave them land because we had huge spaces of lands.
Hmm.
And he gave me a piece of land where I learned to plant sugarcane. So sugarcane, I plant it, I reap it, My mom was used to take all everything that we reap and sell it to in the market in the city in Kingston. And just on that in itself, also, my grandfather was a chef. So being alongside him in the kitchen, I learned to cook, right? And I'm teaching my kids to cook as well. And he was just a different man growing up. The way I was raised is mostly women back in the days in the kitchen and deal with the kids and deal with housework and stuff like that. My grandfather was doing everything. So people loved him. He came to our schools a couple of times to teach agriculture because that was his thing. So those memories, who was golden for me. So if you want more, you can ask specific questions because
Well,
I can
you
go
know
on
what?
and on and on and on
That
about the where I was raised, particularly with my grandfather.
Well, thank you. Because what I heard is that you mentioned your grandfather who seemed to have been an influence in your life, but you also mentioned that you were raised mostly by women. So, can you actually kind of, you just said it, can you give us a few more specific incidents, like maybe at the age of 5, 10, 15 years old, about the influences that inspire you and what you're doing now because of those things?
Yes, a good so I live with like at least 13, 14 people at one point on the farm, right?
Wow.
And we had probably another 16 people helping us on the farm when it comes to, because, I was 4 or 5 growing up, when it comes to going out there and get all the bananas, the sugar cane, the apples, and everything else. So that's all we lived. And, we have cattles and chickens and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So growing up in that environment, it's a huge blessing. And when I look back at it now, Tolu, I wish kids nowadays can probably, live there in that setting for at least a year where you wake up in the morning, there's structure. When
Mm.
I tell people I wake up 5:15 in the morning, they're like, what? I used to wake up 5 o'clock, 5:15 when I was 4 or 5 years old. There's structure
Mhm.
to your day. You gotta wake up in the morning. You gotta sweep the yard because a lot of leaves and dust and stuff like that. I'm trying to paint a picture so people can get an idea. Once you
Mhm.
sweep the yard, then there's a 5 or 6 goats, right? We all our grandkids of 5, 6, 4, 3 goats. That's our responsibility. So we have to bring all those goats out in the field so they can eat grass early in the morning, because the grass is nice and moist and wet. And so that then you come back, then you get yourself organized. Then sometimes we'll go to where the cows are and milk the actual cows, right?
Mm.
Milking the cows in a bucket, right?
Mhm.
And then we'll go to where the chickens are and get buckets of eggs and bring it to the kitchen. So, my mom or my grandmother can prepare all that. And then that's part of our responsibility every single day. And then we off to school, walk to school, and then back, and the routine continues in a reverse way where I go get my goats, bring them home, and everything else. So when I look back on that, those moments were golden.
Hmm. So what I'm hearing is you were responsible as a child. You had a lot of routine, a lot of structure. It sounds like you were hands-on in the farm, and you really took a lot of pride and joy in that kind of hard work.
Yes, at the time I didn't.
Okay. Okay, so maybe reflecting on it as an adult now,
Yeah.
it's
Now I look at it, it's golden. But at the time we were like, oh my gosh, what's happening here? But that was our bubble. That's what we grew up in. That's what we knew. That was everything for us. But it was very, very tough. But this is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, because sometimes it's tough, but at the
Mhm,
long end, we
mhm.
understand that it's for the good.
Okay, so thank you so much for sharing more about your childhood and what it was like growing up in Kingston, Jamaica. Can you tell us what inspired you to make this mindful parenting toolkit?
Ooh, coming here at 16, and everything just seems like cakewalk, coming here at 16 because now, instead of using machete to cut grass,
Mhm.
use lawnmowers.
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
there's everything was just like it was a culture shock for me. And I got involved in I went to school obviously, and I got involved with dating, and at a very young age my son was born at 19. And so I have three kids now.
Mhm.
So one is 27, and
Mhm.
I think you said it earlier, 12 and 9. So my
Mhm.
27-year-old, when he was younger, I went through a really tough time because I was raising him. When I'm not sure if you can relate to this, but I'm pretty sure many parents can relate to this. When you're younger, in your mind, you always want your family to be a certain way. You're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, you're gonna get married, and all of that stuff.
Mhm.
And obviously, certain things that we were raised, and God help my parents because they only raised us with the little that they knew.
Right.
So based on that, we raised very rough and yelling and all these things, and sometimes some physical in there too. So when I grew up, I said I didn't want that. I said to myself, when I have a family, I don't want that. I want this, this, this. So fast forwarded to now, when my son was born, I believe when he was about 5 or 6, somewhere around there,
Mhm.
I find myself raising him the same way, yelling
Mhm.
at him and some physical punishment and stuff like that. And for those who are from the Caribbean, for me, I'm going to describe it as there's a fine line between child abuse and discipline, right? So, and I find myself doing the same thing, and very quickly, Tolu, I lost that relationship.
Mhm.
I lost the relationship because my son's mom, she was born and raised here, and she thought I was too violent, I was too rough, and I thought I was the
You
really
were
caring
fine.
parent, and this is how you raise kids, and this and
Mhm.
this and that. Everything has to be structured, just the way I grew up, right?
Right.
And obviously, I lost that. Fast forward now to not too long ago, around 9 years ago, 8 years ago, um, I found myself doing the same thing with my current wife. And man, there was a breaking point, Tolu, where I lost it with my son. It was 3, he wasn't even 4 years, 3.5,
Mhm.
where he was slamming doors and telling my wife that, oh, I hate you and I hate this place and all that stuff, and slamming doors. And I lost it on him so bad that, without even going into details, my wife lost it on me, I lost it on everybody, and I got an anxiety attack, and I was a little bit depressed for about a week.
Mhm.
There's a lawn goes by me. There's a pond there by me where I stood there, and I was there every day for about a week. I almost lost my job because I just couldn't, based on all I want to raise my family
Mhm.
and to be a
Mhm.
family person,
Mhm.
that wasn't the direction that was going. And I said to myself when I was sitting by the pond for a couple of days, something got to give.
Mhm.
Something got to give. I'm the common denominator here. Lost my first relationship. Now I'm about to lose this one. And I said, something got to give. And that's where everything turned for me. So, that's where I'm at today, where I spend closely to almost over $7,000 that year, where I invest in books and webinars, seminars, applications, and mentors. And because I wanted to find that way, there has to be a way to kind of navigate myself so I can create harmony at home. And
Mhm.
that there was a life changing for me. That's where we are today.
Wow. So what I'm hearing was that you had a vision of how you wanted to raise your family. You had this perfect family in your head, but then there was a disconnect between what you saw and reality.
Correct. You
And so
got it.
when everything blew up in your face, right? Because you couldn't control some of your anger, some of your responses to your children's behaviors, you realized that you had this awakening moment, is what I'm hearing.
Got it. Yes, exactly.
Wow. And you recognize that something's got to give. And you realize you didn't want to lose your family. So you decided to do something about it.
Correct.
Okay. And so you invested money because oftentimes I think we don't want to spend money on something. We may think it's not worth it, but you realize that if I'm going to keep my family and have and raise good children and not make the same mistakes I made with my 27, well, now 27-year-old, I need to do something different. And so you decided to look into what it takes to be a more mindful parent.
Correct, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's, and it's funny because so this is Oliver and I actually met. We were on a panel of a family conference. So I came in as a social worker. He was there as a parenting expert. And even though I was there to be an expert as well, I took away so much from what Oliver had to say that day. And I've never forgotten. We met in 2019, September, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, I actually enrolled in his program because I believed in so much about what he was saying. And so, Oliver, like, I am so grateful that you're here today because you taught me so much and it's really made a difference in my family. When I thought I knew something, I learned more. And so it's worth it for me to invest. And so I want people to hear what it is that you are teaching people and what it is that you're striving to do. So can you tell us why this is so important?
It is so important. One of the things that I've learned is even before I came to my breakthroughs, people around me was saying that, oh, you got to do this, you got to do that, and that's not how you raise kids, and this is a new way now, and even some experts. And I'm going to tell you something. Why is it so important, and why all we should take actions is when people get things for free, they don't see the value. I'm going to be honest with that, right? I'm not
Mhm.
saying most, but a lot of us, when we get something for free, we don't see the value. So when you actually, even a dollar, sometimes you spend that money and it's an investment, especially when it comes to our family, especially when it's something that you're passionate about.
Mhm.
For some reason, some people ask me the same question you've been asking me. A lot of my friends, they knew me from high school, and I was this really athletic kid and no directions and just
Mhm.
very living a fast lane sometimes. And
Mhm.
people said to me, reach out to me, how comes you become a parenting expert? What's like, how did you get to that level? I
Mhm.
couldn't tell them at the time because it's something in me what I was very passionate about. So what I'm trying to say is something that you're passionate about. This is the reason why I say when you live your passion, you're not working, right?
Mhm.
That's why
Mhm.
people are saying that you should find your passion. When you're passionate about something, invest.
Mhm.
These are some of my money. I'm going to be honest with you. It took my wife years. In that year, she didn't know I spent half that money because these are some of the money I was investing that it
Mhm.
really, really tough. I had to make sacrifice on other end to make sure I'm getting these lessons, to make sure I'm getting these
Mhm.
tools so I can provide for my family, not only financially, but mentally, and so we can create a harmony at home. So this is so important to invest.
Wow. So you realize this is important. I need to do a change. You poured your money into it. You say you didn't tell your wife. Now, we're not telling people not to tell their spouses or their partners that they're spending money on something. That's not the lesson here, folks. The lesson is when you are passionate about something, you put some time and effort into it. When you want to see a change, you put time and effort into seeing that change and following through with it. So thank you, Oliver. So now can you just briefly share with us some of the areas that you cover in your workshop or your sessions?
Whew, I cover a lot. When it comes to parenting, parenting is huge. You can learn parenting not only in a 6 week program. Okay, you can learn a few valuable tools, but some of the areas that I cover, I'm gonna kind of list them through progression. Is one of the things parents must understand that we're living in a whole different era, so
Mm,
we have to shift. And one of the things that I've done, I put this course together over the 9 years of studying psychology and Alderian psychology to be specific. We have to shift our mindset now to, and I'm going to be honest with you, we're talking about passion, right?
mhm,
So every parent that I've talked to, they want to guide their children to greater achievements, to their success, so they can live their life. There's no question about that. So we're passionate about guiding our children. That's why we lose our cool. That's why we get frustrated. We're so passionate. Now, there's ways to kind of understand and shift our mind now from the olden days, authoritative kind of approach, to more a democratic approach now. So you get buy-in. And one of the ways I do that, one of the tools that I use to do that is connection first. So you can't start correcting your kids without you connect them. So connect before correction. And in the, in the parenting industry, there's a term called you must get buy-in before you can get them to weigh in. Right? And a lot of us kind of miss that mark. So that's one area as we cover. And I also I grew up on a farm, like I explained, right? So my whole program is designed around plants, plantation, or your farm. And the first thing we do is to get that fertile soil ready for that seed. Once that seed is come, your baby's here. Now, what do? There's three things you do: tender loving care, water, and sunlight. So I give parents those foundational tools so their kids now are in the right mindset to be ready to be corrected. So when the tree is growing up now, it's easy for that tree to be corrected because he has a solid foundation. And here's the magic now, without getting into too much detail, and you can ask me more questions. Here's the magic. Once you start correcting that tree, once you start correcting that child, you are automatically instilling positive characteristics, values in them without even saying it or doing anything. Just the correction tools are just work like that. And that's just 9 years of studying. And parents can see results in within 3 to 4 days, right? So that's the kind of methodology I use around all the different tools that I teach parents. And I'm not sure if I cover your question, but you can ask me more specific questions.
Well, I do recall something about quality time. There was something with quality time, and I do practice that with my child, and where I spend time deliberately with him. And I have two children actually, but my other child is almost 2. So she's a little bit too young to realize what's going on with that quality time piece. But where no phone, I recall that there's no phone, no social media, no TV, and it's a mindful time with your child. And then you let them know that this is deliberate. It's mom or dad spending time with you, and you're telling. And then afterwards, I recall you said to tell them, "Thank you for spending time with me." And I tell that to my son, and he looks up and he beams at me, and he's like, "Thank you for spending time with me too, mommy." And honestly, that made such a big difference in my relationship with my son. He's now turning 6. And I do believe taking your course and learning all of these tools that you teach in the Mindful Parenting Toolkit is very beneficial for people. So that's, that was one thing that I know was a takeaway for me.
And that's the first tool I usually teach, because I want parents to see that breakthrough. I want parents to see results within 2 to 3 days. And that in itself, it is so simple, right? It's so simple. And it's a simple 7-step process to that what you just described. And that in itself, it will help shift the child's mind and you as a parent as well before you start correcting them. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. You're a good teacher, though. So then there are a number of programs, because I remember even me when, things were getting a little bit more challenging with my son. And, as a Black mother, I have a Black son. So you just want to make sure that you're raising your kid properly, that the world doesn't end up looking at him like he's trouble, right? He's a troublemaker, he's a thug. And so these are the things that as a social worker, I'm very mindful of. So as much as I may have some skills, I know that I need more. And so what I noticed there are a lot of programs out there, services that offer help to parents. So what's the difference between yours and others?
Huge difference. There's so many different things because I'm following a lot of parenting experts. I've been in parenting experts seminars and webinars. Some of them are, mentors. I read their books and stuff like that. And the big difference is there's so many. I'm going to see if I can name a few. So one of the big difference is there's band-aids, fixes. There's band-aid tools. For example, some parent expert would say, praise your child, right? Praise them, let them feel good.
Mm.
I teach the opposite of that. Do not praise them because they feel good in the moment. Because remember, we're not raising kids, we're raising adults. So I know they're kids now, but we're not raising for today, we're raising for tomorrow. So when they leave your house, how are they going to be? Are they going to live a life of integrity? Are they going to have confidence? They're going to have resiliency. Are they going to make impact? Are they going to impact people around them? So when you praise a child and you let them feel good, that's in a moment. Now, where's that praise is going to lead? And we know once somebody fill your praise bucket, you become a praise junkie. And then
Mm.
guess what? And I kind of go in, I don't want to go into too much details and get people confused. But when we do that, we are fostering an outside motivation. They need to be motivated by an outside factor where the friends think, where the family think, where the parents think. Sometimes we know we reach an adult stage, we want to start a business. We don't start it. We have fear because we're afraid of this and this outside factor. Encouraging now, I teach, encouraging versus praise. And there's a whole module around this. When we encourage a child, and for example, we talk about, oh, you're such a good boy, you get A, and you're so great, and you're so smart. Now, for the encouragement focus on the improvement, the hard work, the perseverance. Right? When I talk to my kids about their grades and stuff like that, and they show me all A's, I don't see A's and B's. All I
Mm.
see, you know what I see? And I tell them, I said, wow, I see you organize yourself, you put your stuff down, everything down in the sink, and you take everything out of your bag, and the first thing you do, you're doing your homework and you're so
Mhm.
adamant about your own work and you work hard and you set goals, and that's the result of this. So
Mm.
in the law, in the short, just to kind of wrap it up in a short sense, that's one aspect that I'm different from. My methodology is different from all these parenting experts where they teach praise in the moment. I
Mm.
teach parents to raise their kids when they reach 19 or 20, 21 on their own. They don't have to pray and hope that they did their best. They know for a fact they're going to
Mm.
impact others. As young as my kids are, my two youngest kids, from 7, 8 years old, my daughter is impacting people in her classroom and in the playground as well when they used to go to school. So that's what you want, really, and that in itself will give them internal confidence and motivation as opposed to external. So I can go on and on about the difference, but I just want to, there's so many different things, but I chose that to kind of talk about where we're kind of different in that sense. All I teach parents.
So, it's funny you chose to focus on that one concept because that's the one area that I continuously strive to make sure I am doing with my son. So instead of praising him and trying to tell him you did a good job, you're so smart, I keep asking him now, did you try your best? Did you give it your best? Oh, I can see you're working hard. And it's you're right. It's contrary to how we grew up where you're praised and your parents tell you good job, you're so smart, look at the reward, but trying to instill that confidence in my son so he can say, mommy, I tried really hard, is more powerful than to say, yeah, mommy, mommy, did I do a good job? Right. So no, I try not to tell him too much that he's done a good job because I think sometimes they still need a little bit of that, but I try more to focus on the effort that he's put into something. And I totally agree with you that at the end of the day, when he's a grown up, he's going to ask himself, if I put in all the effort, am I trying my
Correct. And one
yeah.
of the most loose terms now, parents, coaches, teachers will say, oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. Of course, there's nothing wrong being proud of your child and people that you care about and you're leading. However, what's more very, very effective in the long term is you should be proud of yourselves. It
Mhm.
feels weird at first saying it, but once you start saying it 7 times, then it
Mhm.
becomes so natural. So once you start telling a child, oh, yeah, you should be so proud of yourselves.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, you can't see it. You probably see it based on your reaction, but in their mind, there's magic start happening in their mind and in their little minds because they're like, wow. So they're going to continue to do what they need to do. So because they know it's an internal thing now. So it's all about internal because how we want to motivate our kids by an external factor, or you
Mhm.
want to drive that internal factor with them because you know they're going to need that later on in life.
Mhm. Yeah, so that intrinsic motivation is what we're trying to instill in our kids. We do have some people that have questions, but we're going to give them a chance to ask their questions at the end of our little interview. So thank you, people, for responding and interacting and engaging with us. So can I ask you a question? Is your mindful parenting toolkit just for parents, or do you have a program for kids as well? And if
It's
what
only,
age?
that's a very good question because I
Mhm.
started off mentoring youth and kids
Okay.
and with practical tools as well and in a form of stories. So I'm also qualified to teach kids 27 different characteristic skills like integrity, setting goals. My kids been setting goals since they were 3, right? And they're 9 now. They're setting multiple goals, and they most likely hit their goals probably 80% of the time, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So goal setting, integrity, responsibility. When you're getting bullying, all these things, neural pathways that some of us adults or entrepreneurs are still just start understanding. Emotional intelligence, right? These are advanced skills. And so the reason why I said it was a good question because I quickly realized that when I was doing that, for me, I'm very passionate about family and creating harmony in families' lives. One of my mission is to, equip at least 10 million parents' lives around the world, right? And I can't do that by myself.
Mhm.
So the reason why that is because when these kids came to my program on a Saturday, every Saturday I have to reset them because now they're in a household where obviously there's no bad parents and there's no bad household. That's not what I'm saying. But they're in a household where the caregivers are not mindful of a few things
Mhm.
that trigger the child or not triggering the child to take action, to take responsibility and make up their bed and doing these things that are doing homework that we struggle with, right?
Mhm.
So I wrestled with that for quite some time, and this is the reason why I made that shift. And a few parents around me say, Oliver, you need to make that shift. Instead of focus on the kids, you focus on the parents
Mhm.
itself because I teach parents what I was teaching the kids. So on that note, though, I'm still doing a few things that I'm gonna roll out another program for kids itself, and I'm doing a few pilot project right now for kids. But I kind of turn your short question is a long answer, but that's just where I'm at today when it comes to teaching kids.
No, you know what though? I think that was powerful what you said. You recognize that you could work on with kids, you could work with kids, but they go home and then things are not, nothing's changed and shifted at home. So at the end of the day, it's like all the work you've done has been in vain. Now, it's funny you say that because when I do therapy with kids, I always get their parents to come in near the end. And I'm like, okay, so this is let's go a little recap. And what do mom and dad have to say about that? What do mom and dad think about that? Or sometimes even the parents are involved from the beginning of the session because I think it's very important that they hear and understand what their children are feeling and saying. So now you mentioned earlier, and I just want to quickly touch on that. And you mentioned it again, or I mentioned when I introduced you, and then you mentioned again your mission is to reach 10 million parents. Where did you come up with that number?
Put it this way: if your goal doesn't scare you, it's
Mm-hmm.
not a goal. Simple as that, right? It's not. I'm not doing people justice if I say I want to impact people in Vaughan because I live in Vaughan. I want to impact everybody in Vaughan. That doesn't cut it for me. I
Mm-hmm.
want to. Put it this way: I want to leave a legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
and I want to leave something that for my kids and for people who say, you know what, this person changed my life, and I may not even know them. They might probably in a different continent, but
Mm-hmm.
this person changed my life and changed my family's life and all that stuff. So that's where that came from. If you know, I wanted to set that goal so I have something forward, looking forward to every day. So when I woke up this morning and I say I'm astonished,
Mm-hmm.
that's the reason why.
Good. So you're talking about you want a global impact. You want everybody everywhere to have a better parent child relationships, and for every it just to be a mindset change, a shift in our, how we see parenting, how children, how our children see us as their parents.
Correct,
Right.
100%. It has to have that shift, right?
Right.
Because, like I said before, as parents, we're passionate about
Mhm.
raising our kids and do good in the community and live their life, right? But we kind of not mindful of a few things, right? This
Mhm.
is the reason why I love work. It was very challenging in the beginning, right?
Mhm.
Because some people said to me, "Oh, could you tell parents what to do? How can you tell parents what?" I don't tell parents what to do. I
Mhm.
help shift their mindset so they can raise their raise kids to great achievements and to be successful.
Yes, I totally agree. So, based on your experience so far and all the workshops, the webinars, the conferences, the panel lists that you've been, the panels that you've been on, what are the common challenges that you see in parenting?
Ooh, one of the common challenge is parents are not willing. Parents don't have mirrors at home. They're
Mhm.
not willing to take a look at themselves. They always blame the kids or blame society. You know, you probably heard it. Kids nowadays, society nowadays, social
Mhm.
media causing my kids not to do homework and all this stuff. All these gadgets are causing my kids. These gadgets, they're not going to go away. They love them. My kids are on Instagram as young as they're 7, 8. They're not on Facebook, but they're on you know, they have all these gadgets, they're doing all these things, but we have to be mindful of how we are controlling those times spent. So one of the biggest thing that I've noticed is parents are not understanding them that they are in control instead of just blaming so many different things because there's going to be more things popping up, right? That
Mhm.
that the kids are going to be into. So we have to start looking at ourselves as parents. That's what I did because I was just, you know, you heard my story. I was blaming her. I was blaming everything, not understanding that the biggest shift was me, Tolo, was me as a person. That was the
Mhm.
biggest shift for me.
Mhm. Okay. So then, can you tell me more about an unforgettable story you've heard from your experiences? How the parents or the kids were struggling before attending your workshop, and how did their life change after applying your method?
Oh, lots of stories,
Mhm.
lots where I got you know, there's a few coaches, some parents. You know, they used to take me out every month because I changed their life, and their stories revolve around. You know, they want their kids succeed so bad in sports. They want to see their kids get good grades, and they're losing on their kids all the time. You know, stories like the moment they wake up in the morning to get their kids out the door, to have them brush their teeth and do their homework and you know, get out on time. The kids are slow to get out on time, and all these stories, you know, overwhelming. Now it's more overwhelming. Now is teenager stories where you know these teenagers are on social media. They're waking up at 12, 1 o'clock, and you know they're
Mhm.
not doing nothing with their life, and they're just in their room watching TV, and you know not doing anything in the house, and nothing like that. So I've heard all of these stories, and it just gives me some really good goosebumps because I know I'm in the right place. So,
Mhm.
what was your question again? I
Well,
just
no, I asked, well, you answered it because I asked, like, can you give me some stories and experiences of how it's impacted parents' lives or their relationship with their children? And you pretty much,
yes, yeah. So thank you. So when I,
yeah.
you know, I have some case studies, right? So when I
Yeah.
interview these parents now, you know, obviously some emotion, they get emotional, and
Mhm.
and some parents they just can't really you know, before they met me, before they took the program, they're like, I can't believe like I was just heading down the wrong road,
Mm,
right? And especially when parents get, you know, especially parents who have young kids or 5 and 6, because when we are 5 and kids, we control them. We think that we know we can parent them by controlling them. And
mhm,
when some parents at that age, of kids of that age, they get some overwhelmed because it's a good thing I met you now. It's a good thing I'm using these tools now because
mhm,
I can see where they're gonna be in, you know, next 5, 6, 7 years, and years later, 2, 3 years later, parents are calling me, telling me stories and breakthroughs that they've been having now. You know, the kids been waking up early on time, and you know, I remember one particular incident where this mom saw me at the basketball court. I haven't seen her for years, and she said to me, "Guess what, coach? My kids are like, at 9 o'clock comes, they just say, 'Mom, kiss me good morning. I'm going to bed.'" They're like, "What?" Like they have to, you know, go to your bed and give them punishment and talk
mhm,
about different things. And they just happily go to their bed at a certain time, wake up in the morning, do their thing. They don't have to really, you know, tell them to wake up, brush your teeth, make breakfast. This, they're just kind of self-regulated. And that's the whole key here for kids to be self-regulated. And they can be as young as 5, 6 years old.
mhm. So I really, I do believe that you're onto something here. Like I said, I'm a living witness of what your program is about and how much it's impacted us, our parenting, and changed the way I view my children. And can you talk a little bit? You talk about like the power struggle and the. Can you kind of maybe touch a bit on that? Because I think it's kind of important that people hear how you handle or how you should approach power struggles with your children.
Power struggle. Whoo! See, when it comes to power struggle, first thing comes to my mind is emotional intelligence.
Mm.
E as a parent, emotional intelligence. So, for example, you have a power struggle with a child. We know what power struggle is. I don't want to go into details on that, but we get really frustrated because of the power struggle. When you are frustrated as a parent, there's absolutely no way you're gonna deal with or respond. You're going to react. You're not going to respond to that child in the most appropriate way. So, emotional intelligence with us, and I teach emotional intelligence where we have to take a step back, 1 to 10, take a breather. A lot of parents said to me, "Well, the child must have to do this right now." Why should they have to do it right now? Right? Why can't they do it later on? So we have to give them choice. When we give choices, we give them power. The only reason why there's power struggle, Tolu, because there's two things. Let me go to some basics. There's two things kids need every single day. Put it this way, a child can go a whole week without having food, well, unless they're severely sick, and they can survive the whole week and they can survive. They cannot survive without these two things, without attention and power, positive attention and positive power. They get it every day, right? So we need to give them in a positive way now. So the reason why there's power struggle because they're taking their power back because there's too much ordering, directing, and correcting. If your child start having power struggle with your child, then you're doing a lot of order, directing, and correcting. They have no control over their own world, over their own self, with certain things that they need to be controlled over. So when we start getting to that kind of rustle, then we frustrated, they're frustrated, and that's going to lead to all sorts of different issues later on. So, and I know I touched on a few things. So when it comes to power struggle, we have to emotional intelligence. How we how we respond is very important. So I don't teach. I teach parents how to respond versus react.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I also, we're coming close and we do have a few questions that's popped up from YouTube and our chat in
Oh,
here
we
on
speak
Zoom.
already?
Pardon? Yeah, there are people listening, and I think you have something valuable to to teach them. So can you just thank you once again for joining us. Do you have any final thoughts before we get into the questions from the audience about your unique concept, your mission, how you can help parents out there? I think you kind of, alluded to that already, but if there's anything else you want to add before we get to the questions.
No, not at this moment. I want to hear more questions. Let's leave for more questions.
Okay. Our question was from Kofi. Kofi, if you want to ask the question or you want me to read it, up to you. I didn't know that he will actually ask if he wanted to, but he did. Well, I guess he's probably still listening. He says, "Would you like to?"
My I don't know if it was your connection or my connection, because it was very choppy. I'm hoping that you all can hear me clearly. You can? Okay, cool. Yeah, so my question, I love this piece that you said about the praise junkie. That I thought that was really interesting. Children can become praise junkies. And I was thinking that if you can see me. Sorry, I was thinking that you spoke about them in the playground, your daughter in the playground, or the impact. And I thought it's really key that it's almost like our children can become mindfulness ambassadors if we're kind of passing on. We're not only setting the example, but they're getting the tools and they're utilizing them. I thought that was so profound. So I guess the question I had with that is, how can we incorporate that more? How can we cultivate that more? And not even just our own children. It could be any child that we're our nieces, our nephews. We're imparting this way of being. How can we do that more? I guess is the question that I have.
Sure. Simple answer is join this organization, sign up for my program. Sorry. So there's something that I just started. It's called a new language. It's called ESL, not the other ESL that we knew. Encouragement as a second language. So to your question, Kofi, how we can do that is, and this ESL, it takes you probably an hour or two to learn this language, or we speak to our kids in terms of encouraging, especially when they misbehave, especially when they're doing something wrong. Because when they're doing something wrong, we chastise them and we punish them, not knowing that they're doing that because they're saying something to us. They're asking for guidance and mentorship. So, let's look on parents as we're mentors. So all we can do more of that is do more of the encouraging, understand the encouraging. And if you just go on Google, type in praise versus encouragement. You can go field day with that sort of language. That's a different kind of language, like I was saying, where I remember 2 years ago, my daughter was 6. She came to me and her best friend, she said, Kofi, I can't be with my best friend anymore. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I can't drop you over. I used to, bring them over to have some play date, and I know the family and stuff like that. She goes, no, because she doesn't carry herself a certain way, and she causing problems in the playground, and she causing trouble. And I said, but you can't. What's wrong with that? I'm testing her, right? I'm like, what's wrong with that? She goes, no. That's going to mess me up. Then people's going to look at me and say, I'm hanging out with her and she's causing trouble and she's going on and on. She's 6 years old. And I didn't encourage her. I'm like, okay, that's a good way to look at it. I just leave it at that. I was just floored and I was talking to my wife about it. And so basically, to your point, Kofi, where we can teach our kids to be ambassadors, that's the whole point here. I cannot reach 10 million parents if I don't do that. Because that in itself, that might even change that little girl. Oh my gosh, Jalez is my really best friend. I don't want to lose her. I got to change my ways. So that can cause a whole domino effect later on. So learn the ESL, encouragement as a second language. That's a whole language, and it's very easy to learn.
All right. I think, okay, Tolu. Yeah. Are you okay, Tolu?
Thank you. Yes,
Tolu.
sorry, my internet's acting up.
Tolu. Tolu, you may want to you may want to log out and then log in.
Technology.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anybody else has any questions though? Anybody else?
I have another one.
Keep it coming. Go.
So mine is, I'm the question guy, so don't worry, I have many, but I don't know how long y'all have. No, my thing would be I have some nephews that are video game junkies, right? And I want to know, what is your recommendation? I love what you said about the technology. And it's funny because as you're talking, and I find this with you, Oliver, sometimes when Oliver is talking, I can incorporate what he's saying right away. Like in my mind, I'm like, yeah, I'm getting rid of the old thought. I'm taking on this new thought because this makes sense to me. What you mentioned about technology, and it sounds like we have to take back our household from the technology, or at least we have to set it up in such a way that technology is not taking over our household in the first place. But if we're already there, my question is for the parents that are already there, and for myself, having nephews that are connected to this screen. How do you navigate that now that it has maybe even become an addiction, or it has become something that they rely on? How do you balance that? I'm keeping in mind, we all grew up Super Mario Brothers, Sonic the Hedgehog. I used to play these games, and I used to sit for 4 hours. We sit 4 or 6 hours to finish a game. So this is not a judgment call. This is just, how do we balance it in this generation now that we know better? What are some ways you would recommend outside from taking your course? Because I'm sure in your course you'll be touching on things like this.
Sure. Wow. So when it comes to shifting the mindset, first we got to shift the mindset. Number one, technology is amazing. We can't defer our kids away from technology. Technology is amazing. So I'm gonna give you an idea. My home is a consequentiality home. There's consequences for everything because that's what life is. Now, when it comes to technology, we have to understand that there's some great things about technology moving forward. And also, we have to limit them. So there's something called logical consequences. You can Google this as well. There's 2 types of consequences. One is natural, one is logical. We're always quick to take away our kids' devices, and that's caused a power struggle. Then you're gonna lose. Parents always gonna lose at the end of the day. So if you're gonna use consequences, the child now is looking at you and say, oh, you're taking revenge on me. And that game's over. So the way you shift your child's mind, right? Now there's something called the 5 R's of logical consequences. And one of the R is reveal it in advance. So for example, if your nephew's on a video game and you want to get them out of the video game, you say, okay, all right. You gotta wait. You gotta break the news to them on the rule. When you're stating rule, you gotta get them in a good place. When you have fun with them and all that stuff. Okay, you know what? I have an idea. Uncle, I have an idea. We're gonna set some new rules moving forward. You have to reveal in advance what the new rule is gonna be. So from now on, you have 1 hour. This is what we have at home. You have 1 hour per day on your device. To some people, that's shocking. 1 hour. Wow, how do you do that? 1 hour, especially now that they homeschool, they're online for 5, 6 hours. I don't know how much hours they're online. Offline, when you're done, even on weekends, you have 1 hour per day for your devices. So you have, my daughter have a phone and an iPad. She have half an hour there, half an hour, however you want to spend it. In order to do that, once you set these rules, right, you reveal in advance. So that's number one. So when you reveal in advance, there's steps to this, there's layers. You are giving them choice. So now they know if you stay 1 minute past that 1 hour, this is what's going to happen. And the consequences now, you have to be reasonable in duration. The other R, you have to be reasonable, because if you get mad, emotional intelligence, if you get mad and take it away for a whole month, then you find yourself in a whole different problem. I remember one dad in the audience said to me, I just sold the flipping thing. And another mom said, I took it away for a couple months. That's devastating to a child. So you let them know, age appropriate. So my daughter, she's 9. I'll say 4 days, you're not going to use it if it's 1 minute past that 1 hour. My son, a week. Right? And it happened before. Right? So they know what the consequences is. So they are going to test you the first time. So they're going to choose. Once they choose, they have power. So they ain't going to be a power struggle. And now you're calmly, when you're taking away now, there's script. There's certain things you must say once you're taking that away. We take things away because we're mad and we're frustrated. How well are you going to respond to a child when you're frustrated? Listen, I told you, blah, 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 blah. Whatever, depends on the culture you're from, right? So you simply say, watch this. Watch this script. I want you guys to write this down. I see you choose to lose your video game privilege. Say your consequences, you lose your video game privilege for a week, right? So when you're ready to take it away, so can I have a word with you? Sure. And if they say no, you don't. Well, you wait until you have a word. So I see that you choose to lose your video game privilege. I have full confidence in you that you'll make a better decision next time. Thank you. Take it away, put it away for 1 week. Do not, if you say it's going to be a 1 week, if it's going to be, say, 2 days and 3 days, no matter what, they're going to negotiate with you. Do not stand your ground and be firm. That's what life is all about. So we want to teach them at a young age that they have to understand there's consequences for every actions. So what's the other R? So reasonable in advance. Drawing a blank here, but basically
before you go, but Oliver, before you go, before you even go to the next R, that one just hit me. What you just said, I'm thinking of these Caribbean parents. I mean, my parents come from the Caribbean or wherever you come from. You said you ask the permission of your child to even have this conversation.
Correct.
So I know there's some parents that on the live or whatever that are on the line that are saying, what? Ask my parent. I want to ask, what age does this start? At what age are you talking like the 6-year-old, the 7 to 8-year-old? What age can that start?
From age 3.
Wow.
Age 3, when a child understands the cause and effect. They know the cause and effect. You see, here's the magic now. This is why I teach parents how to shift the mindset. Here's the magic now, Kofi. When you ask a child, let's go with a 3-year-old child, can I talk to you now? Or can I do this? Whatever it is, you are giving them instant power. Instantly. And like I said, they cannot go a day without getting power and attention. They just get it because when you react to a child, that's attention or power based on the reaction, based on what they did, right? I can break it down right now without time. But I can show you how they're taking their power every single day, every day. They are taking their power. So once you do that, now put it this way, you guys try this. Ask your child something, that permission or whatever it is. And there's a shift in their mind. They're going to look on you now from a whole different perspective. So here's the magic now, Kofi. Once you start correcting them, easier to follow instructions, easier to obey your rules, easier to go to bed at night, easier to wake up early. It's easier for them now to say, because they have a different respect for you now. It's like, oh, my dad listened to me. You know how many times I remember one of my first breakthrough when my daughter was 5 or 4.5, really, really young. Wake up in the morning and she have a certain time she shower, right? Because we teach them to shower early. And I was in the shower. I messed up my timing. So I was in the shower when she was supposed to be in the shower. She opened the door, didn't knock, right? They usually knock, open the door, very adamant. My daughter is very, 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 strong personality. And she said, Dad, is that you? And I say, yeah. I say, you're not supposed to be in the shower this time. Blah, 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 blah. It's my time to be in the shower. I'm organized myself to go to, I think she was in kindergarten, senior kindergarten, something like that. And in the shower, I was like, yes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You know what? I'm just gonna wipe off. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna come out right now. I'll finish shower later on. And I put on my towel, get out, and I said, just give me a second, let me come out. I rushed out really, really quick. Now, whole week, she was talking about that. She goes, oh my gosh, Dad, I can't believe you really listened to me. And she couldn't understand that. In my mind, I'm like, yes. So she was filled with power that whole week. And obviously I talk about this story all the time. And my daughter right now, she 7 years old. 2 years ago, she played tackle football with all male kids. She was the only female at 7-year-old tackle football. When it comes to confidence, she's not lacking. She plays multiple sports right now. When you see her on the basketball court, you just see a different person. I'm not comparing, but with everyone else on that court, you see a different person. When the game is done and they lose by 40 points, we lost by 40 points one day, and she was cheering up everybody. It's just a game from an 8-year-old child. So, and that's not fluke. That's just a strategy and design by just the way we talk to them and use their encouragement and give them the respect. Here's one of the things done from Algerian psychology. Children should be treated with dignity and respect every single time. If my grandfather or my grandmother heard me say that, they'll be rolling over in their graves. So from a Caribbean background, to Kofi's point, that was never. It was the opposite way. Kids should be, what is it? Heard and not seen, or I forget what it was, but it was very disrespectful kind of way where, and I'm not saying they were, because they had to, they did what they did with the tools that they had, right? But, just to your point, I just want to share that quick story so I can relate to Kofi's question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Paul, can you able to join?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, can you talk?
A little bit. Can you continue speaking? So.
I think it's echoing too.
Yeah, the connection. If you can join by phone.
It's very unstable.
Yeah, it's still you have a connection issue.
Any particular internet company?
Yeah, Sivan, if you can ask her to join by phone, that would be probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just do that.
Yeah.
All right, Oliver, we had just a few people joined just a few minutes ago. Anybody else have any questions though? Because it's over 1 hour, so we are planning to bring them and have one more session, or we are planning to do something else in the near future. So of course, it's very, very important topic, not only important topic, but it's a wider area to cover. It's just we cannot just finish in 1 hour. No, it can't. That's another way of rushing. So anybody else have questions? Feel free to ask so we can finish it up though.
Yes, I got a question.
Go ahead.
I know this question here is probably like a whole topic in itself, so I understand if you could just maybe just glimpse over it. But
What's your name?
seeing,
And yeah, please.
my name is Johnny.
Okay.
Yeah, my question is, seeing how that there's quite a number of parents who are now parenting alone, and they are parenting their child either just on weekends or half the time and stuff like that. My question is, what are some of the nuances and the differences that you could do when you are parenting just yourself, and in specifically when the topic of the other parent comes up? And I'm talking basically like what would be the most effective way to address the other parent in terms of your mother, your father, Joe, Sam, Bill, and things like that, and when you're talking about them and stuff like that. So I know it's a big question, right? But maybe you could just glimpse over it a little bit.
Wow. That's a big question. I can't even glimpse over it because it's not more big, it's deep. So there's multiple layers to that question. I've experienced probably all of them except parenting singly. When it comes to, even I'm going to be honest with you, my wife, she wasn't on board the first year I start studying this and all that stuff. At one point, and I tell the story all the time, so she won't think that I'm throwing her under the bus. At one point, she was saying to me, Johnny, you're a soft dad. What's wrong with you? You're a man or what, right? Because my approach was different. But also, on the other hand, she was seeing a different result from the kids. So she was confused. So I experienced all the different levels. So when you're in a situation, I've been dealing with this lately a lot, single parents, and it's very tough, especially when the other parent is also heavily involved. Now, there's something called one layer below emotional intelligence is empowering paradigm. So empowering paradigm talks about you cannot control another person. None of us can control another person. You can only control yourself, your surrounding, and how you respond. So on that note, when your child come in your presence, say we go with a single parent, the child comes in your parents, and they're coming with all sorts of different elements, and based on what their parents say and stuff like that, it's your responsibility to do one thing that I usually teach that I talked about earlier with Tolu is that MQT, mindful quality time. There's 7 steps to this mindful quality time. That there, you give them attention and power, and they have a whole different level of respect for you as a person. Now, on the other hand, that's just a glimpse over that. On the other hand, when it comes to the other parents, always find a way to speak positive things about that parents, although the other parents might be very, very evil. Always find a positive thing to say about that parent. I've been there where my son is 27. I'm going to tell you real quick. I couldn't be able to see my son for a while, and every time he comes to my presence, it comes with different elements from different sides. And I'm always make the very effort. It was very tough to say, you know what, she don't understand. She's going through a tough time. Don't worry about it. This is what she meant, and this is what she understood. And if I said, no, this is what we're gonna do, right? And back then, I didn't know 2% of what I'm teaching now. I just knew that, and I think it comes from my grandfather too, right? A lot of times, as kids, you're growing up with the household, you can see parents' interaction, very important, right? And if they have no parents, you hear them talking about each other. And my grandfather wasn't happy with, we can tell, but the way he talked about her, I was even confused as a child because, we're not learned about emotional intelligence, right? So we learn to kind of chastise somebody else. So always as a parent, your child are not only what you say doesn't mean anything. It's how you say it and your action you're taking about when you're in that present. So one thing, Johnny, is the MQT. There's a certain way to spend mindful quality time. This is different from quality time. There's a structure to this quality time, and it's only take 10 minutes. That's the beauty about this. 10 minutes, and the way you structure it, you give that child a whole different peace of mind. And also the way we speak to them, encouraging. I talk about encouragement, ESL. We also have to use this with our spouse as well, or our ex-spouse as well. Encouraging words are very, very, very powerful, because it's not about us as parents, because we can't control the emotions. It's about when they grow older, they're going to call Johnny's name. I never lived with my dad, Johnny, but I'm going to tell you this much. He taught me this, and he impacted my life. And that's what we want from our kids.
Oh, that's really powerful, man. That's really, really powerful.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And it's a lot of in there when you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. It's you know, we find each time so many different layers, so many things to cover. Yeah, it's a conditional and unconditional love. You know, so many things behind it. Tolu, can you able to join?
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now it's
Okay.
better. So phone is helping now.
I had to join by my phone. It's not delayed anymore?
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
Okay,
You
good.
are right on the time.
So thank you, Oliver. I was kind of in and out, but it sounds like a lot of people had lots of questions, and you were able to really do it justice by taking your time to speak to people and answer their questions. Thank you so much for coming on our show today. I do believe Alan, who joined us, he had a comment on YouTube as well. Correct, Sivan?
Yeah. Well, he was saying, let me read that we need to bond with boys and show how they are just as valuable as our girls. This important process with the message influence conveyed starts early. Yeah, it's also a very powerful statement.
And it's very important. I just want to touch on that for a second. You know, especially with what this organization is all about. You know, Voices of Men 360. We know, you know, I only can speak from our culture, that the men are actually missing, right? They're there, but they're not present. So, and obviously it is just a few tweaks, a few education, because the way we were raised, if I haven't gotten so many different mentorship and understand about love and bonding, and you know, I've been crying on my son's shoulder since he was 6, right? And man is not supposed to be seen crying. That's a form of weakness, not understanding that crying is a form of strength, right? Being humble is a form of strength. So, you know, we have to, and I'm so happy that you guys are doing this organization, and I'm gladly come back and share a few tips and, you know, and some insights when it comes to bonding with our home and men and stuff like that, because it's needed, right? This mentorship, this mindset, it's needed. And it's just a few tweaks and a few mindfulness we need to go through in order to do that. But so, that's a good comment. Thank you, whoever made that comment.
Yeah, he's a very strong activist in terms of helping men, boys around the world in the past for so many years. So I just want to add one more thing here, where when you brought that, you know, the parenting, one other thing is distancing, you know, you just mentioned about father, they are not presently here. One of the thing I personally believed, or my concern is that let's say that the way the parenting, I mean, the wife or the spouse raising kids, from early, let's say, they make a father figure or father, kind of like a conditioning or, a ruler. You know what I mean? That it doesn't matter whether you like it or not. It also affects our mind, the father's mind. We also a human being, right? End of the day, every day you come after work and then you say, you know what? Oh, because my father comes in and you complain, you bring all the complaints and any mistake or anything the child does, and then take it to the father. So he already frustrated, and then he has gone through so many things, stress. Now in the evening, so he doesn't have any control to handle his own emotions. By the time he comes with that own emotions, and then he cannot teach or he cannot really, have a good time. Okay, he just want to have a good time with the family. But over time, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, so the gap is, the space is growing, naturally, gradually growing. So that's one of the important area that I don't know whether in any culture, that's very, very common in any culture. And also, nothing is against a woman, but I'm just wondering that how did they really understand that distancing with the intention or without intention? Sometimes they know they are actually acting up. You know what, they want to make the distance between the child and the father, but most of the times unintentionally happens. They don't know they are doing. They just think they can helping, but they are not really helping. They are not helping themselves. They are not helping the kids. They are not helping the man in the house. So it affects everybody. It's a chain reaction.
Correct.
I don't know what's your comment on that.
Oh man, that is really, really deep, Sivan. Um, like you said, they affect all culture. And the very beginning of how I teach parents, I also touch on this, to be honest with you. Very, very important. Um, because we came from authoritative background, authoritative structure. No more now, it's totally different. And even some old school dad is kind of struggling with that. And what happened is when the mom kind of put the responsibility and say, you know what, I'll talk to your dad about it and different situation like that, it takes away how the mom confidence in dealing with that child's issue. Because one of the things that was working against me with my wife is she had that mindset where she will always wait until I come home before she tell me what's going on, because for some reason she doesn't know how to deal with it, or she just wanted. So parents think that when you have a rough, loud, aggressive voice, kids tend to listen to that. That is very short lived, because that's one thing. I can go layers, but we don't have enough time. Another thing too is you touch on something very important. You, as the dad now, your anxiety just raised because you want to make sure your wife is happy. You want to make sure your wife is doing things at home and there's no problems at home. How are you going to spend quality time with your child? How are you going to bond with your child? And one of the things that I teach is emotional connection. Emotional connection is number one tool that we must have with our kids or even our loved ones. So how is a dad is going to bond with that child so they start growing apart? And now watch this now. They have wife and husband or spouses. They have the child in the middle, and this here is also growing apart when the child is growing apart with the dad or the mom. So everybody start growing apart. When they reach teenagers now, and they have 3 rooms in the house, everybody in their own rooms, and nobody's communicating, no bonding, and there goes the family dynamic. So there's so many layers to this, but I just want to leave it at there. But that's very, very powerful and very important.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
I was wondering if you could, sorry, make a comment, that you could comment on it there. Just in regards to dads, just yesterday, I think I made a very selfless act for a father. You know, it's one of those things that goes unnoticed. I made sure that my life insurance was all set in place. My neighbor who had passed away a few years ago, when he passed away, he had left his house for his daughter, you know, like, and he was a very thoughtful man. He was actually dying of cancer, and he made sure everything was set up for her. And so his daughter inherited a home after he passed away. And I even had another friend who also passed away from cancer. He made sure that his life insurance and all his things were all set up, you know, before he had passed away, to make sure that his family was not in a financial distress because of that selfless act there. And I think it's one of the important things I think everyone should do. And of course, dads should make sure that, you know, that their family, their children especially, are taken care of, you know, when they are actually when they do pass away.
Very important, especially in our culture. Life insurance is not being taught, and it's just a few mindfulness or some education when it comes to that level. So thanks there, Johnny.
Thank you. So thank you everybody for joining us today. My apologies for all the, technical issues. We are living in a very digital technical world, and I guess sometimes we're going to have hiccups. So thank you everybody. Just to end it off, we have a few announcements we want to share with you. So weekly with Voice of Men, we do have a show on Sundays, a talk show called Open Up. So it's live every Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we also have this weekly webinar where we talk about different topics. Last week, we talked about human trafficking. This week, we talked about mindful parenting. And then you'll see what we'll talk about next week. You have to join us. And so that is every Saturday at 10:30. And then there is a Tamil talk show as well, a live talk show. It's called Vili. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Sivam?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I need to work on my Tamil. And so that's Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we also have another show Sundays at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for people that live outside of Canada as well. And then we also have a panel discussion once a month in English, and that's also in English and Tamil, sorry. And we have a podcast called Open Up in English. And it's you can participate at your own convenience. You can find that podcast. And so we also recently started a monthly men group meeting, which we did our first one, I believe, 2 weekends ago, January 17th. And that was at 7 p.m. I was part of that. So even though it's a men's group meeting, but women are allowed to join. But we talk a lot about men's issues. And of course, you don't have men's issues if you don't have women involved in some of these things too, right? So we women can contribute to those things as well. And so that is every third Sunday of every month from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. The next one is coming up, I believe, February 21st. At 7 p.m. And then we do have 2 upcoming panel discussions that are taking place today and tomorrow. So the first one is today at 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. And it's a distinguished panel discussion recognizing the second observance of International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Men and Boys. So that's taking place today, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we have another panel discussion taking place tomorrow. And so that is that's also about eliminating violence against boys and men. And it involves people like Steve Kerr, who's a peace officer, people from, it's an international panel actually. So people from South Africa, from US, Finland. So please feel free to check out our Voice of Men 360 Facebook page for further information and for links to those panels. And that one will also be taking place tomorrow, but from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. So I do believe our Open Up show is shifted to 12 tomorrow. Is that
No, 3 o'clock we should be
3
done.
p.m. Sorry, it's shifted to 3 p.m. tomorrow. Okay, and so we can be reached at www.voiceofmen360.org. That's our website. Our email address is info@voiceofmen360.org. Our phone number, if you have any questions, you want to participate, you want to be a part of the panel, you want to join our organization, contribute to it, partner with us, we can be reached at 437-889-8329. That's 437-889-8329. And then, like I mentioned, we can be found on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel. We can be found on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn. So we are trying to stay as digital and trendy and as social media savvy as possible. So you have no excuse. Okay.
I
Yes.
just shared those links, all the links on chat. So whoever wants to join, please use it. Yeah.
Perfect. So once again, if you want to be a guest on any of our shows or you're willing to partner with us indirectly or directly, please reach out to us on any of those different platforms that I mentioned. And we would love to work with individuals, professionals, experts, community associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses that are passionate about men and boys issues. We are striving to raise good men in today's world, and it's really difficult. There's a lot of pressures. Oliver touched on some of that, and so let's try our best, okay, to partner and to join us, and just to be a part of this great mission. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us, everybody, and we hope to see you again, and we hope to see you next week. Take care of yourself.
Peace. Have a blessed day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.